What is up, everybody? This is Braeden from Flint Mastering, and I am the host and content curator of the Mixing Music Podcast exclusive episodes. And today we have for you an exclusive archive, which means you're going to hear an exclusive episode that Dee Kei and I recorded almost a year ago. You're going to have the chance to hear what our exclusive episodes are all about and how much fun and learning goes on between me and Dee Kei as we discuss technical tips and important techniques in relation to producing, mixing, and mastering. If you enjoy this episode and you'd like to be a part of the exclusive content we provide twice a week, you can do so by heading over to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. Thank you so much for listening. We love you, we appreciate you, and we couldn't do this podcast without you. I hope you enjoy this episode of the exclusive archives. And with that, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy. Hello, our friends, and welcome back to another exclusive, subscriber-only episode of the Mixing Music Podcast. First and foremost, thank you for your support. We appreciate you, we love you, and we couldn't do this without you. Today, I'm your host, today and every day, I'm your host, Braeden from Flint Mastering, and joining me is the legendary, the supreme former hype beast himself, Daddy Dee Kei. What's up, Dee Kei?
Wow. Yes, I am the former hype beast because I have a lot of hype beast stuff, but I have not bought anything hype beasty in a while. So I have a crazy sneaker collection though that is now over 2 years old. Like in the back, if you're watching on YouTube, I have the Travis Scott ones behind me on the acoustic panel. I have the Supreme Melodica box behind me. Anyway, let's get right into this episode. This is a good episode. You picked another good clip. Thanks, Braeden. By the way, Braeden has still got the COVID. We're all recording these. If you're wondering why Braeden has COVID every single episode, it's because we recorded all of these episodes on the same day. And it happens to be the day that Braeden has COVID.
Yes, I'm down with the sickness. My wife got it first. She got a brand new job as a band teacher in Texas, and she's been at band camp, so I assume she probably got it from one of the kids and then brought it home to share. So
Yeah. Just to be clear, she wasn't kissing another man that has COVID.
No. That would be extremely illegal.
Illegal? I said, man. Just kidding. I'm teasing. Yes, sir.
All right. Well,
hopefully your wife feels better. And hopefully, I don't care about you, but hopefully your wife feels better.
I honestly, as long as she feels better, we're all good. Because we've both had COVID several times now, and basically it's just body aches and a deep voice at this point. So
what I don't want to do is say I don't care about you, and then you end up dying next week. That would just make me look bad. So don't do anything stupid like that, okay, Braeden?
If that happens, you'll just have to speak at my funeral and apologize over the pulpit.
I will be wearing a party hat, and I'm not going to be sad at your funeral. Do you want me to be sad at your funeral? We're not. You're not going to die. It doesn't matter. Let's get into this episode.
All right. Here we go. All right. So today we have a clip from singer and songwriter Alex Kapranos. And for those of you that don't know him, he is the lead singer and guitarist for Franz Ferdinand. And this is a band that had a huge, massive single called Take Me Out. It was in Guitar Hero. It was all over the radio.
Take Me Out.
Yep, there we go. Just Google Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand. You'll know the song, I promise. But in this clip, Alex is going to talk a little bit about songwriting. And it might be hard to understand the point he's going to make when we listen to it, but we'll explain it for you why we like this clip. So without further ado, Alex Kapranos, roll the tape.
But I listen back to that now, and what I was trying to do, I remember what I was trying to do when I wrote that. I was trying to write a bridge between this section and what would be the chorus. And when I listen back to that, even though that took me so long to write, it doesn't work. So we'll hoy it, we'll get rid of it. And that's kind of why it's important to kind of like take time and distance from things, because you realize that doesn't work. I need some kind of bridge, but it's not that. That's too long and that's too involved. It's too boring. It's really boring.
Okay, cool. So we heard Alex talk about, and like I said, this might be a little confusing, but we heard him say like, oh, when I came back to the song, I realized what I wanted to do. I wanted this to be a bridge, but it just didn't work. And then he talks about, and you might be wondering, well, how does this songwriting, this bridge apply to me as a mixer? He says that he put it down and then he took time away, he took time away from writing the song. And then when he came back, he realized he didn't like it. And I think this is something we can definitely do with our mixes and masters, is we can finish them, take time away, come back, and see if there needs to be any final adjustments. So with that in mind, Dee Kei, how often do you do a mix, stand up, walk away, come back to it a day later, 2 days later, and how does that benefit you when you are mixing projects?
Almost every time. In fact, I would actually even consider it part of my mixing process if we can afford that time. And for me, fresh perspective means I don't listen to it at all, not even on my headphones, at night, on my phone. I don't listen to it at all till the next day, until I have a good night's rest. That's just super important. Fresh perspective is everything. And honestly, depending on who you are, that might be one of the main reasons why someone hires you, is because you offer a fresh perspective. And if that's the one thing that you lose, and everybody does, then, your value shrinks. So you need to have a fresh perspective. That's what it is. Both in the songwriting phase, in the mixing phase, and maybe even afterwards as well. So like in the marketing phase, how to brand yourself. There's going to be someone that's professional, that knows more than you, but also has a fresh perspective on who you are. Oh, Dee Kei, you're a lot more goofy than you put off. Maybe we make your branding more really goofy. And I'll be like, I don't want to be goofy, but it's like, but that's going to work for you. All right, well, I trust you because you're professional and have a fresh perspective. And I think that's important. And this goes in two ways. So if you're an artist listening and you often hire an engineer, you probably don't because you're listening to this podcast and you're learning how to mix. But if you do, that is important. And something to consider is that it is sometimes worth hiring someone like Braeden to master your tracks, or Dee Kei to mix your tracks, because it's more than just the skills, it's also the perspective. That is literally the most important thing for engineers.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I would say is like, I don't know how to put this, but like, it's something that a mastering engineer will offer you is a fresh perspective on your mix. And that's a lot of what I do, is I have people just straight up like send me mixes asking for feedback. Like they don't even necessarily want me to master it, which is a bummer when they don't, but they just want feedback from an outside source. And that doesn't mean that my ears are better than them. It doesn't mean I'm like mastering guru. It doesn't mean anything like that. It's just getting a different set of ears on your project that have a different perspective than you do, that can offer that perspective. And sometimes, like I watched this Mix with the Masters thing with Chris Geringer, and he mastered the song Levitating by Dua Lipa. Literally all he did was a 1 dB boost at 60 hertz, a 1 dB boost at 8K, and then 1 dB of limiting. That was it. But I'm sure he made a big old paycheck off of mastering that song, and potentially that album if he did the whole thing, because people are paying him to basically give the thumbs up on their record. At that point, and a lot of times, like, mix engineers are so good now, sometimes nothing needs to be done in the mastering process, but sometimes that's what you're paying a mastering engineer for, is literally to just give the thumbs up to your project and say, this is perfect, let me get it 1 or 2 dB louder, and then I'll get all the file formats ready for you. And especially with digital, or if you're going to go to vinyl, that's where another, like a vinyl cutting mastering engineer can help. If you want to do tape, then a mastering engineer that can cut to tape can do that for you as well. But definitely just getting a fresh perspective on things, whether it's from yourself, removing yourself from the situation and coming back, or from another person, I think is extremely helpful. And, we've all been there where we sit there and compress the same guitar part or kick drum or snare drum for like 30 minutes. And you get to the end and you're like, I can't listen to this song anymore. And it's like no matter what songs we love, or how many, like some songs, if we listen to them too much, you just aren't going to like it anymore. And you have lost the ability to be objective about it, at least for the time.
Dude, I'm going to start another tangent. This could be a whole nother episode, but you brought up something super important, which is that mix engineers are so good now. And this is partially due to technological advances. In fact, actually hugely due to technological advances, both in the recording and mixing stage, to huge advancements in the availability of knowledge through YouTube and other sources. Mix engineers are so much better now. Like, even the people that are the worst performing mixers that come to my Feedback Fridays on my Twitch, like, objectively have better mixes than half the stuff that was mixed for Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's crazy just like how high fidelity music can get nowadays. Man, I go back and listen to the old Michael Jackson stuff, and I swear on my life, if anybody remixes that shit and makes it sound better to today's mixing standards, I will slap the shit out of you. You better not change it, because it's not just like how good you can get it to sound. It's also like a nostalgia. It's a feel. Like, mixes are important because they create a feel to a song, and it would change it if you change any Michael mixes. But even like old Michael mixes do not sound good as like newer Michael mixes. And or like probably it's you listening right now. It's just like mixers have gotten way better, and I don't think that there's enough credit going around for that. I think is super interesting. That's a whole nother topic, but the most important thing is fresh perspective. The cool thing about this is that we all have it, meaning that it doesn't take any skill to take a break, and it doesn't take any skill to have fresh perspective. What does take skill, and I think this is something that people can get better at, and this is something that is an improvable skill, is how long you can keep working and maintaining that fresh perspective. This is why I always recommend mixing super fast, is because you kind of get into this mindset and this zone where you stay instinctive about all of your mixing moves when you have a time constraint of finishing this mix within 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, it may not sound the best, but you're gonna, during that entire time of focus, you're gonna stay relatively fresh because you don't have time to overthink anything and spend 30 minutes on a kick drum. And that's going to kill your perspective. And I think that maintaining a fresh perspective after sitting down is something that does get better. Like, for example, when I watch Bob Horn mix, he'll sit down and can mix for a couple hours without taking a break, and he'll be able to maintain a fresh perspective. He's also experienced enough to know, okay, I need to get up or like commit some of these tracks that are going to outboard gear, and use those few minutes that it's committing to just stand up, get around, and get a fresh perspective when I come back. Or wait till the next day. You know, it takes experience to know when you've lost perspective, and also maintaining perspective longer when you are working. This is important. And the cool thing is, like, again, just like everybody can have fresh perspective, the reason why that's true is because we all, including you listeners, we all listen to music. And we've all have listened to music heavily growing up. We know what music is supposed to sound like. We know what good music is supposed to sound like. We've all listened to good music our entire lives, especially if you decided to do music as a career. So your fresh perspective is valuable. You have so much background and so much more credibility than you're probably giving yourself credit for. So something to think about.
Absolutely. And especially with the fresh perspective, sometimes you'll come back and you'll sit down and listen, and you'll be like, oh, this shit slaps. You know, like don't think that because you stand up and walk away from your computer station or your desk or your working or your studio, that doesn't mean you have to come back and change something. It's just a way to get away from it for a second so you can let your ears basically recharge. And that's one thing that I've heard Leslie Brathwaite talk about many times, is that people pay him for his experience to know when not to do anything. And so keep that in mind as well. Just because you stand up and walk away or you want to get a fresh perspective, it doesn't mean you have to change anything. So I think we're good there. And yeah, we'll do the typical housekeeping. Make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/.
Hold on. We got to do the homework.
Oh, the homework.
I think the challenge this week, I'm going to assign it properly, is to get a song that you need to mix. Maybe this is not the version that you send back to the client if you are using a song that you got from a client. Maybe this is an older session that you pull up from before, but kind of restart it, refresh it. I challenge you all who are listening this week to set up a time constraint of 30 minutes and try to mix that song from scratch in 30 minutes. And I think this works better if you have a song with like 30 plus tracks rather than like a 2-track and 2 vocals. But like a whole song, like set up that time constraint, put up a timer and mix the song in 30 minutes. And that'll force you to have a fresh perspective. That'll force you to think about things that are important and not let you linger on things that don't matter. And quite frankly, you may discover that mix sounds better. So that's the challenge for this week. Just do a 30-minute mix. Just to see where it goes. You're not going to be able to do anything. You might not even be able to put on plugins. You might just like do levels and panning. That's all you can do. And maybe one EQ here and there, but that's fine. Whatever it takes. And the point of this is also to stay instinctive. Like use your instincts. Should the kick drums be louder? Should the bass be quieter? Like just use those instincts. You may not know. You can adjust it a little bit later. Just fly through it. And hopefully that helps you.
Absolutely. It definitely will. It's something that's helped me just mastering quicker. I remember one time I was working with Dee Kei and he sent me a track and he was like, all right, I want you to master this track in 5 minutes. And then after that, do it again, take like an hour. And just doing that exercise alone is like super helpful for, like Dee Kei said, learning to rely on your instincts since we all know what good music sounds like. But good luck with the challenge. As always, subscribe, youtube.com/DK Mixes. Check out DK's live streams on Twitch, and for other cool, helpful resources and free materials, links.dkmixes.com. So without further ado, we will wrap this episode up. DK, sign us off, my man.
Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.